to me, I think the problem with the Christian conception of God has always been the problem of evil. Like, I don't know how I can reconcile a God who is all good, all powerful, all loving, all knowing in a world that has so much suffering. You hit on your faith. I know that's something we kind of beforehand talked about. I would like for you to kind of talk a little bit more about that. Kind of your evolution in terms of your faith, where you're at with it, what it means to you, how it kind of affects you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I grew up in a devout Christian household. My mom is what you would call a prayer warrior. Before she went to bed at night, like, she was praying for however long, speaking in tongues. And, I grew up, go to church every Sunday. But as a kid, when you're kind of like, and everybody's experience is different, but it felt like a chore. You know what I mean?
That's actually exactly how I describe it when I was a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
It felt like a chore. And, I went to Nigeria for a couple years. And if anybody knows, like, Nigeria has one of the largest Christian populations in the world. I believe so. That needs to be fact checked, but I believe so. And, Christianity's huge over there. Like, it's a part of life, church, everything's a part of life. And I also grew up with a devout aunt. So I say all this to say that, like, it was all around me. Like, I couldn't escape it. But for some reason, like, it just didn't, like, hit me. And it wasn't really until, like, this year, when, I had a call with a friend, and, I'd always wanted to build my relationship with God, even though I was kind of agnostic. Like, I feel like I don't, but I was hoping that one day something would happen, right? Because even before, like, I think, like, as a teenager, I was so big on, like, good and bad. And, oh my God, is this a sin? This a sin? And, like, that did something to my psyche. And it was a point where I was like, all right, I'm gonna just do me. You know what I mean? And it was just from there. But earlier this year, in April, had a conversation with a friend, and she was telling me kind of like what the Lord was telling her about my family. And we hadn't had a conversation prior to this. She was telling me things that she shouldn't have known. And dude, it hit me. And, like, I was silent in that call. And I remember I was tearing up. Dude, like, she was just saying things like, how do you know this? And for me, it just felt like it could only be God. And right after that call, I was like, I'm going to strengthen my relationship. And ever since then, like, if I'm not reading my Bible every day, it's every other day. Like, my Bible's stuck with me. And so, yeah, I'm not the type that's going to force, religion or my faith onto anybody else, because I was that guy who was like, all right. But I've always taken, and I feel like you do too, because I see your content on TikTok. I feel like I think you're in between. Like, please talk about that too.
I grew up in church. My mom is a minister in the AME Zion Church. My dad grew to the AME Church. He was, like a trustee in the church. He was a church musician. I was a church musician. But I am very much not religious. I probably am pretty atheist, but I'll never claim it. I just claim agnosticism, which is probably something that has to do with like how I grew up, growing up in a religious family. But it's something where, like you said, when I was a kid, Sunday was a church day, which I was very much resentful of. Like, I would like to have my second day of my weekend. I'd get to church, the church that we went to Bethel AME and JP. 8 o'clock service, get there like 7:30, 8 o'clock service, Sunday school in between, 11 o'clock service. Then my dad would have his trustee meetings after. So I spent the whole day at church, and I hated it. And then it was the rules, and I have a problem with authority and all of these things. But the other thing for me, growing up as a child, was I was always somebody who ruminated on things a lot. So I think the thing that first got me was this idea of like eternity, right? Like trying to wrap my mind around the infinite as a child was impossible. And it probably still is. And so I was the type that asked a lot of questions. Then I went to Catholic school in 7th grade. And so I'm getting a different perspective on the same religion. And it was just questions after questions after questions after questions after questions after questions. And eventually the answers that I was getting or wasn't getting became so dissatisfactory that said, I'm all set on this. And so right around 16 years old is when I think I really left religion. And I've made attempts to go back. I think when I was probably 22 after college, this is, COVID's still kind of happening, but I made my efforts to go back to church. I was a part of a Bible study, just young people. It was very informal, but we were going through the Bible. I was going to church probably for like 6 months, but it didn't capture me. And at this point, I don't see it happening again. I've had plenty of conversations. I was actually talking with Gardner yesterday. I was shouting him down. It was funny. But I've had plenty of conversations from a philosophical perspective. I love talking about it. I love, learning about it. I'm not much of a reader. I'm on YouTube, right? Gotcha. So I like to listen to YouTube and podcasts from, biblical scholars, things of that nature. So I love to learn about it. But for me, it's not something that really connects with my worldview.
I get it.
Yeah. So, but I always find it interesting the way people's spiritual journeys kind of go, because everyone's looks different, right? So I know people, right, who didn't start in church, right? Like that wasn't a family foundation for them. And they end up very devout. You have people like me who are the opposite. You have people who kind of start off in church, similar to you, right? And it's like, I'm here because I have to be. And at some point or another, it becomes a conscious choice. And to me, it's the conscious choice that I think is really important. Like, what is it that flips that switch for you? And so for you, it was a conversation that was like, it couldn't be anything but God. Right? And so I think that's a very powerful experience for those to have. And I love learning about different religions. Like I have a few close Muslim friends. They're similar religions. They're both Abrahamic religions. And so it's something that I am deeply interested in. But as far as being religious, I don't think that'll ever be something that I engage with again. I'm always open to it. Like if it happens, it happens. But that is something that boat is probably sailed.
Man, if I'll say one thing, man, you never know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And everybody's walk is different. That was me last year. You know what I mean? Like I did not think I would be here. But yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, like I said, to me, that's why I always claim agnosticism, because I genuinely don't know. This is not something I can know. But I do know, though, I think the thing that has always been a struggle for me is I was introduced to philosophy when I was in high school, and I do love philosophical inquiry. And to me, I think the problem with the Christian conception of God has always been the problem of evil. Like, I don't know how I can reconcile a God who is all good, all powerful, all loving, all knowing in a world that has so much suffering. Like, the standard justification is usually free will. My response to that is freedom is limited, right? Our ability to choose is limited by our physiological capabilities, right? So I couldn't choose to get up and fly right now. So in that sense, if your free will is already limited, why couldn't it be limited further? What's the line that makes you free in one sense, but like this not free in another sense? I'm not explaining it very well, but that's always been something that like I can't overcome. I haven't heard an explanation that really makes it make sense for me. So again, to me, it's a conversation I love having. And like you said, you do never know. One day someone might package it in a way where it's like, oh, I get it now. I still, listen to my gospel music on Sunday because that's what I was raised on. I think that's the music of my people, right? Like, so I do think like I have those spiritual experiences, but like linking it back to what I was taught in church is something that just doesn't connect to me.
That's deep. That's deep. And I'll say from my personal experience, like just reading the word, like sometimes I'm like I'm asking questions, right? Like I'm reading the Bible and I'm kind of like, so if this is this, why is this? And then I'm going to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is breaking it down better than I feel like anybody would have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially because like I can't sit and call a pastor, hey, da 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 da.
Right.
I have so many questions like you.
Right.
ChatGPT answers them.
Right.
And it's almost like ChatGPT is Christian.